exercises for that, right?
Yeah, I am seeing a chiropractor.
Good. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our zone board meeting, first one in April. And I'd like to start out with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And before we get into the introductions, Allison, can you just give an overview for participants who will be, giving the public hearing, so on and so forth, just for clarification?
Sure. So it looks like we do have some people who are for open podium tonight, but it looks like we do have some questions about whether or not open podium is going to be a time where you'll take comments on Kinsella Quarry or Salt Springs Water District. So I didn't know if you, when I finish this, if you wanted to clarify that. If you do want to speak for open podium, just use the Q&A function at the bottom of your little information bar down there, and just let us know that you're here for open podium, your name, where you live, and the topic that you'd like to speak on, and then we'll pull you in for that. Meeting attendees now who are here for a public hearing to be a presenter will be pushed into the meeting and allowed to speak, and then pushed back out. And I didn't know if that was also how you wanted to take comments this evening, or if you wanted to solely use the Q&A function, or if you wanted to do both.
Well, we have done both in the past for the public hearings, so if it's not too cumbersome.
No, absolutely not. So
there's still the 3 to 4 minute time.
Sure. So you'll have two options this evening. You'll be able to use the Q&A function to speak at a public hearing. So when it gets to that section, just make sure that you say your name and that you'd like to speak at the public hearing, and then you could place your comment there, or you can also raise your hand and we'll pull you into the meeting at that time.
Very good. All right. So before we get started with the open podium, I'd like to begin with our introductions of everyone here tonight. My name is Ed Theobald, Town of Manlius Supervisor.
Sarah Bollinger, Counselor.
John Deere, Town Councilor.
Julian Denton, Town Councilor.
Karen Green, Deputy Supervisor.
Caitlin Priesel, Town Councilor.
Heather Waters, Town Councilor.
And also with us tonight, we have our Code Enforcement Officer, Randy Capriati. Town Engineer, Doug Miller. Highway Superintendent, Rob Cushing. Chief of Police, Michael Kroll. Town Manager, Ann Oot. And our Town Attorney, Tim Ferteski. And of course, our Town Clerk, Allison Weber. So for clarification tonight, the open podium will be used for probably items other than the Kinsella Quarry. And as far as which I'll explain what we're going to be doing there, as well as the Salt Springs Water District. We will be having sessions, we'll have informational meetings. We're targeting some time in May for the Kinsella Quarry, because we've received a lot of correspondence from many of the concerned neighbors and so on. So that we're just getting the ball started on that. So there's a lot of things that we won't be able to answer tonight until we get a chance to have the informational meeting where we'll have a panel of individuals who are experts in this field of especially regarding the zone change for the quarry. As far as, yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, I was gonna say we have a public comment form right on the website. And what I think I'll try to do is I'll try to reply to some folks that are here for the quarry to let them know where those go. And then what we'll do is I'll also drop that in the comments on our Facebook video, just so that folks know that we're not saying, don't tell us how you feel about the quarry, but that there's a way that we're collecting those questions to actually get those answers.
Yeah, we've been gathering a lot of comments, and as Allison, every time I get them or any of the board members, we send it right to Allison so that she coordinates that with all the board members, and it gets put in a file so that we can address all of these questions when we get to our public hearing, especially. As far as the water district, we have that public hearing is set for 6:30. So we're going to be a little behind on that. And at that point in time, once the public hearing is open, then we will take questions from the participants who are interested in speaking, whether, as Allison said, it's either going to be verbally or it's going to be through the Q&A. And as always, it's you just identify yourselves, your address, and 3 to 4 minutes to make your comments or questions to the board. We will be keeping that public hearing open because there is quite a bit of information there, and because of the size of it, I'm sure we'll get more questions even once we are done with tonight's public hearing, which will maintain being open. Okay, that's a lot, I know. But if there's anyone that would like to speak regarding the open podium that maybe has something other than that or some clarification, we'd be happy to answer that. I see we have some Q&As here.
Yeah, it looks like we do have one Counselor Deere was communicating with ahead of time, but it's a person just logged in as MS. I also have an Andy Gallery who would like to ask a question about Spectrum cable. So I will push Mr. Gallery into the meeting at this time.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Gallery, go ahead.
You're on mute, Mr. Gallery, or Andy Gallery. You done mute? There we go.
Thank you. So I'm curious and interested, right now there's an exclusive in the town of Manlius with Spectrum Cable for providing internet service. And I am curious as to what the terms of that contract are and how long that lasts.
I'd refer to Tim on that. Can you help us out there, please?
So let me clear up some confusion, which everybody has. First, the contract or the franchise we have with Spectrum is not exclusive. Any cable or internet service provider can come into the town and provide those services to the residents of the town. What we have is a agreement to allow, or a franchise agreement to allow Spectrum to use our right-of-ways, our road right-of-ways, our utility right-of-ways to put their cable in our right-of-ways. And that's allowed under state law. And we get a fee for allowing them to put their cables in our right-of-way. The town has nothing to do with who can and can't provide services in the town as it relates to utilities or internet services or cable television. So I don't recall, I think it was a 10-year franchise agreement, but I don't recall what the length of the franchise agreement is, but it is an exclusive, and it's not to allow them to provide services in our town. It's to allow them to use our existing easements, either road easements, utility easements, to put their lines in the ground. And Doug, please jump in if I missed anything, or if anybody has any recollection different than me.
No, that's my understanding, Tim.
Was
And
that,
Verizon does have some lines in the town.
Understood. My understanding is that when contracted with Verizon, they basically said, oh, no, we can't do this because Spectrum has the rights to it or something along that lines.
That's not accurate. If whoever's telling you that is from Verizon it's just not accurate. Verizon can come into this, they can come into the town of Manlius if they want to. It's our understanding, and we've had this question many, many times, so you're not the first to ask it, Mr. Gallery. They have determined that it's not cost effective for them to build out their system in the town of Manlius at this time. I know Allison was involved in that too, and I think have something on our website, or we used to have something on our website that explained all this.
Mr. Gallery, this is Caitlin, Counselor Creasel, and Allison and I was working with Kay, who works in the supervisor's office. This is something that has come up a number of times, and Allison can definitely give the full history of it. If you ever want to sit down, I'm sure she'd be willing to do that with you. But I was recently in contact with Verizon regarding FiOS and expanding it in our, said to a resident that it was the town's decision to not allow FiOS to come here. But I do have an email from Verizon saying that at this time, the reason why FiOS isn't here is because they have made a business decision that they don't care to expand right now due to the financials of it. So it's not the town's decision to not allow FiOS. It's not an agreement with Spectrum. It's Verizon's business choice to not be here.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Some sort of, thank you. Sorry to interrupt. Isn't there some sort of state issue with this too, where I believe there was a commitment made to expand? This was all before the funding for rural broadband got onto the table recently. But I think that there's some larger issue too with the company and the state about commitments to expand FiOS and a disagreement at that level. So I don't know if that plays into it at all, but it's good to have this local grounded answer for where we stand. Thank you.
yep. Very good. Now I know we don't have we have about 6 minutes or so left in the, do we have any?
I don't see any other hands up. We did have, if you just wanted to, and I had typed this answer out, but if everybody could just confirm that at the informational meeting in May, there won't be any decisions made on the quarry, and that it is not back on our agenda until after the informational meeting.
Yeah, we would have to have the board would make it in a board meeting. This is not a board meeting, this is an informational meeting. So there's no decisions made by the board during those meetings. It's strictly to get an understanding to the public and answer a lot of questions that you're all concerned with. So there will be no decisions made.
Elaine, did you want to add something?
I do. I do want to say too, I know we originally looked at May for this meeting, but again, we are also taking in this proposal and taking into all your considerations, and we have many questions ourselves. And this process is going to take a long time because it's such a big request, right? So we're gonna look at this and look at all your taking all your comments, absolutely. So as soon as we know when we can do that informational meeting, we will absolutely try to announce it to make sure everyone has enough time to know when it is, and that we know that we can provide the information to the best of our ability too as well. So again, the first date we kind of came up with was May, but again, we're diving into this as well, and that may get pushed back. But we will, as soon as we know when we can provide a timeline, we will absolutely do that.
And I do want to mention too, we have our new our engagement tool coming out, Civil Space. We're getting trained on it tomorrow, and the quarry is one of the first projects we'll have in there. So that'll have all of the information. And if you are interested, please do make sure you sign up on the town of Manlius.org website to receive notifications on town board meetings, zoning board meetings, as that's probably the best way to make sure you know exactly what's going to be going on.
Yeah, and let's not forget, I mean, we're local government, but we're still government, so we don't speed through anything. You know, it's gonna take time to get it right. We want to do it right. That's the reason behind it. So, anyone else, Allison?
Ed, can I add one thing to the just to this discussion on the quarry?
Yeah.
So I know that all of us are getting a lot of emails, and I've gotten some messages through my Facebook page. But Councilor Deere had mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that he's going to share those resources for everyone. So if you're just tuning in, John, can you repeat how best people can share their feedback on this issue?
So I did post the link on our Facebook feed. We don't have a chat here. I responded to a few folks in the Q&A, but the easiest way, if you're on the Zoom right now, the easiest way to get to this form is to go right to townofmanlius.org, go to online forms, and public comment form is the second one on that list. And that is not specifically just for the quarry or any of the other matters we're talking about tonight, but it's a generic public comment form. And if you submit your comments through there, it's added to the record and it's forwarded to every member of the board. So it's really the best way to make sure that your comment is captured and then sent out to everybody that needs to see it, and also becomes part of the record.
And I'll reiterate too what Elaine said, because I think that that's so important. What Councilor Denton said, that that we're committed to transparency, just as we always have been. That we all we have right now are questions for Kinsella and questions on what they submitted to us, questions on what the environmental impact of this will be. So we are committed to transparency to everyone in our community. We are nothing is happening behind the scenes. All we're doing is saying, does anyone else understand this? All we have are questions, and we're asking those questions. We're getting that information, and we are not rushing this through by any means. And even if there's a delay in the meeting, don't take that as a lack of transparency. Take that as us really doing our due diligence behind the scenes to make sure that we're getting all the information that we can to share with everybody, and that you, the community, and us, the town board, are really all in this together. We're all learning and going through the process. I've gotten so many emails of people like, what's going on? Is this being rushed? Not at all. The opposite. We will take our time with this for sure.
And just to reiterate the Q&A, for those who might have gotten on late, the questions I'm seeing regarding the Salt Springs Water District, we will be opening that up when we open the public hearing, right after we pay some bills and a few other things here. So, so I think we could probably move on to the next item, because everything else seems to be about the water district. With that, let's move on to item 4, which is approval of the minutes, March 24th, 2021.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for March 24th, 2021.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed and carried. Very good. And we will move on to item 5, which is the approval of abstract number 7.
So, Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to approve abstract number 7 in the amount of $345,419.88.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and carried. Very good. All right, now we can move on to item 6, which is the public hearing on the Sky Ridge Water District, Salt Springs Water District. I know, Allison, we have our speakers here again tonight. We went through the presentation. I know, as Caitlin mentioned, it was 3 weeks ago. And I know you missed it, Caitlin, but I don't know if you wanted us, if you felt we needed to go through that slide.
I have a couple comments to introduce this, Mr. Supervisor, and I've asked Taylor to provide just a couple of slides, not the whole presentation.
That would be great, Sarah. Thank you.
And I did watch, Ed. I was at home. And it was like the best TV show I've ever seen. It was riveting. I quite enjoyed the TV show Manlius Town Board. It's fantastic. I'd highly recommend it.
I didn't think you'd miss it, Caitlin. Really
I watched the whole thing. Trust me, I had plenty of running commentary.
So with that, Sarah, let's toss the ball over to you, and if you want to take it from here, we'll get the.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to thank everybody who did come here this evening to learn more about the Water District and to share your opinions. So this is regarding the Sky Ridge Water District. One of the things that's complicated about this project is we're actually contemplating 3 different water districts working together. The engineering report map and plan report dated March 2021 was prepared by Barton LaJudas and presented as just mentioned at the last meeting. That is videotaped, so if anybody missed that presentation, you can watch that again. This is a capital project, which is part of a joint water improvement project between the town of Manlius and the town of Sullivan to construct a new water main along Salt Springs Road in the town of Manlius and Sullivan to serve potential new users, along with providing a potable water supply to the Sky Ridge Water District. And to replace existing infrastructure. And the purpose of tonight's public hearing is technically the 202B hearing for the Sky Ridge Water Project, but because these are all integrated, we're not separating the comments out. But this is not a short process. There will be several discussions as we go through different steps. And so at this point, I'd like to introduce Taylor Botar, and along with him are Olivia Hicklin and Rich Andino. And Taylor's going to show a couple of slides to kick us off, and then I'd like to waive the reading of the public hearing announcement, and then we could kick off the public hearing.
And you can make that motion when we get to that point. All right, Sarah.
All right, thank you.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Thanks again for having us at the town board meeting. Allison, if you see Ken Knutson in the waiting room, I believe he's on as well. But with that, I will share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, so as Sarah mentioned, I won't go back through this whole PowerPoint for you guys, but just to recap, we'll go over the overview with the map here. This is the proposed project, and tonight we're focused on the Sky Ridge Water District, which is this existing district, on Golf Road and in Horseshoe Lane. The proposed project that we have to serve that district, you see on the screen here. Again, we have a pump station that would pump from the existing aqua water tank over by North Eagle Village Road. It would pump down Salt Springs Road to a proposed water storage tank, which would then continue to serve the existing Sky Ridge Water District, and then close the loop, down in town of Sullivan near Sleepy Hollow Road. Closing that loop is needed just for water quality and operational needs. A quick recap on our project schedule. This is the high level schedule. I do have a very detailed one, which I'll bring up in a second here. But just to show you where we're at in this, quite lengthy process. In April, I've highlighted in red here. This is the 202B. That's the New York State town law process for improvements to existing districts. Of course, that being the Sky Ridge Water District. And tonight, I believe the board is going to open the public hearing. And I believe that will be, allowed to stay open for another couple weeks. From there, we still have a number of things to get through, such as additional board resolutions. Sarah mentioned, this being a joint project with other districts. We'll have to go through that process. Bond resolutions, intermunicipal agreements, all these things really needed to lead up towards having a complete grant application that we're hoping to target this summer. Certainly there's a trend with funding announcements, and we hope, our funding programs that we're looking to target will be announced as well. Just a couple other things real quick. Again, this is our project website, saltspringswaterproject.com. This is the front page here. We've added a couple updates. Of course, this being the most recent. And what we wanted to point out is that the website comment period has been reopened. We'll keep that open from today until April 28th, or until the board chooses to close the public hearing. To get to that public comment, just go over to the public comment tab. There should be a drop down that you can click on. And if you give it a minute, this would be your comment box. I would just note that we do ask for your name and address, and that your comment would become part of the public record, through the public hearing. One other thing I'd like to point out is under project information and anticipated project schedule. There is a link down at the bottom. This is the general schedule at a high level, but this will bring you to a detailed project schedule, which is what we have here. And I know there's a lot of information on this. I'm not going to go through all of it, but I just wanted to, kind of give everybody an idea of all the different steps that we have outlined. From today, again, we're at the 202B public hearing process, and we have all these steps to get through before we're even, grant eligible later this year. Lastly, as Sarah noted, there is a preliminary engineering report and map and plan. That map and plan is the outline of the proposed improvements, for this Sky Ridge Water District. With that, any questions for me from the board?
I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading of the public notice.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right. For those of you who have not been to a public hearing, in person or Zoom, this is how we do it. We ask that we will, as Allison mentioned, we have a lot of Q&As from earlier that we could probably start with those, I would think, Allison. And then if there's anyone that wants to speak as well, we can have that. We can have that option. Obviously, these are the statements here. We will try to answer the best we can. We aren't always able to answer them in the public hearing because we're not sure of maybe all the answers. There's always some questions that we might have to research on, right, Taylor? And but I think most we should be able to answer them. When we get to the screen, when someone's going to speak, we, again, ask you to identify yourself, which you're doing here on the Q&A. And we have about 4 minutes to speak, and usually one question at a time if you could, because there's other people that are going to want to ask. And then we can come back around to you if you have another question. So let's, Allison, what do you say we start with some questions there?
Sure. I'll start with the Q&A.
Yeah. Oh, Elaine, we have a first question, Elaine.
Did we open the public hearing?
No, we need to make a motion to open the public hearing.
Oh, I thought we did.
I'll second.
Oh, sure.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Elaine. I was so excited about not reading the public notice. All right, now we are open. So thanks for catching us on that one. So go ahead, Allison.
Sure. I have J.R. Messinio. Given the local nature of the water district, would it be possible for Ed and the board members to openly state if they have ever worked for or represented either ClearPath or the Horseshoe Water District? If there are any conflicts of interest, the associated parties should recuse themselves.
So I have worked with ClearPath for Veterans in the past.
So you're not currently working?
I'm not currently affiliated with them and haven't been for years, but.
Okay.
No. Okay.
So I have a Benson. Is the water project still based on the 2016 ClearPath for Veterans and Horseshoe Lane water deficiencies, or has this expanded? What decisions have been made?
Taylor, can you?
I think you can get that one. I mean, you've definitely done work since 2016.
Certainly. This proposed project is based on that, March 2021 preliminary engineering report and map and plan for the Sky Ridge Water District. And that is the main driver for the project right now. And what we're talking about today, their needs, their existing water system, that is deficient. It is not based on ClearPath and their needs.
And then just so you all know, I am going to, it looks like Mr. Messineo has some questions and he'd like to speak. So I've got one more question in the Q&A and then I'm going to push Mr. Messineo into the meeting. So this is from Benson again. Taylor, what are the specific water quality and operational needs you mentioned? Do they address remedies or are they new development generated or both? Please specify.
Yes, I believe the water quality and operational issues that I had mentioned, the need for that looping of the system is what I was trying to speak to. There's been talk in the past about if we started at North Eagle Village Road and we brought a long dead end water main that stopped at the town boundary, just only served the town of Manlius. That is a long dead end water main. With that, you can have stagnant water, which over time would lead to water quality issues. And what Aqua would have to do is they'd have to go out quite frequently and pretty much just flush water and dump it on the ground to keep that water quality at a suitable level. So that's really what's driving the need for closing the loop, as I keep saying, and connecting back into the existing Aqua system, down by the village of Chittenango. By having a loop, the water will, continue to flow, throughout Aqua's entire system. And then you wouldn't have that same issue with water stagnation, which then leads to water quality issues.
All right, I have a hand up. I will get to that next, but first I'm going to allow Mr. Messineo to talk.
Before he does, could I just ask one question?
Sure.
Tim, on the question about whether or not there's a concern with interest, what was it? The question was Sarah worked there a long time ago, the conflict of interest. I just wanted, as from the legal standpoint, explain where this is not a conflict of interest, if that's possible, just for clarification.
Happy to. So under sections 800 through 809 of the Public Officers Law, it sets forth what is a conflict of interest of a public official. It has to do with contracts and whether or not there is a contract before the board where a public official has a financial interest in that contract. They are not allowed to vote on that. It's my understanding that there is no such contract between Councilor Bollinger and anybody as it relates to this project. And therefore there is no conflict because she has represented or done work for a party who might benefit from the special district is not considered a conflict of interest under the law.
Thank you, Tim. Again, I just wanted some clarification on that. Go ahead, Allison. You said that Mr. Messineo's.
Yes, Mr. Messineo, go ahead.
All right. First of all, Sarah, thanks for your transparency, and Tim for the explanation of the conflict of interest.
Yeah, let me correct myself. I think it's general municipal law, not public officers law.
Okay, thank you. Let me state from the outset, I'm opposed to this in general. What appears to me the primary driver, which I think Taylor mentioned, was that Horseshoe Lane has a problem, and it appears that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that over the course of many years, Horseshoe Lane should have been reserving capital, as all special districts should, for inevitable repair, maintenance, and replacement. Now we fast forward, and again, I'm assuming there's totally inadequate funds there, that Horseshoe Lane is asking their neighbors in the town of Manlius to subsidize what I'd call an irresponsible behavior over a course of probably 30 years. So that would be my comment, that I feel that if they're the primary driver, they did not reserve enough capital, they should bear an inordinately large burden because other than them, there may be a handful of people that I know of that have some problems along the way, but the majority of the complaints seems to come from Horseshoe Lane. So feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd like to see what your thoughts are on that.
Thank you, Mr. Messenio. Anyone from Taylor's neck of the woods, you want to say anything on that?
Yeah, I certainly can't speak to, previous financing of the Skyridge Water District. Certainly what I would say is that the proposed solution, we feel is the best fit, not just for, well, certainly for the Skyridge Water District, and that is the extension of the Aqua water main. In extending that water main down Salt Springs Road, certainly the folks along that road have the potential benefit of that main as well. And that kind of brings us into this joint project concept.
Well, potential benefit is different than a demonstrated need. Horseshoe Lane is demonstratedly needs it. Our water here is very good. Yes, it may be hard, but that's a relatively easy thing to remediate. And we would benefit from additional fire protection, but we've had 2 structure fires here in the last few years, and the fire department did a great job getting adequate amount of water here to fight those fires. So it goes back to the concept of why is the rest of Salt Springs Road going to carry a burden that I believe should have been carried by Horseshoe over a period of many, many years. How much do we know how much they've reserved for the repair of their system, which they've used over the years?
Well, I know that, Tom, I know, Ann, you have a lot of the numbers of the water district, which of course are public knowledge as well. And I know that they contribute into the district. I believe it's under the comptroller's level of $700 and something a year, I believe. Is that correct? Yeah. So that they all do. So that builds up, and then it has been used for repairs. I know, Doug, you could probably explain some of the things that it's been used for, working with Aqua and so on. And they did talk with us about 5 or 6 years ago about the tank repairs that we were going to do. And we did look at 2 or 3 different alternatives for that, and as well as going out for bonding for that. And at that time, they decided that no decision was a decision, I guess, on their part. So we continue. They don't have a water problem as far as quality or anything like that. It's just a matter of, it is an old system. It's been around since the 60s, and so there's some repair work that needs to be done, but they are adequately funding for what they need to do right now. That's a sort of an overview.
Okay. Normally, and I've been president of a couple of homeowners associations, projections are made by firms like Tyler and Ken's firm way in advance that says over the course of the useful life of the equipment, you should not only reserve for maintenance, but you should reserve for the future fair market value of the replacement. Because if they have not done that, which it appears to be the case, they are shifting the burden, the economic burden, to folks along the road who do not need the water, other than maybe a handful. So that's my point. I see a shifting of the cost burden to us.
Okay.
Okay. And that's my primary comment.
That's good. Thank you for your comments, Joe.
Thank you.
I wanted to respond. I think it was Mr. How do you pronounce your last name? I'm so sorry.
Messenio. Joe Messenio.
Thank you. So I wanted to, I saw your comment as well that the board should be aware that not everyone has internet access and may not have an awareness of this process, especially the elderly. So I thought maybe I could address that as well. I mean, there are certainly limitations with the meetings being on Zoom and over the internet, and I absolutely respect that. Some folks don't have access to the internet, so I appreciate you raising that concern. Allison, could you share how we've reached out to people in the community regarding the water district and the attempts that we've made to inform people?
I actually think that might be a Sarah question. I was just looped in administratively, but that's definitely a Sarah question.
Okay, so everybody who was potentially in the water district, which is more people than what is shown on the map that Taylor previously showed, because we did the side streets as well, just in case, received an actual mailing from the town to say that, a postal service mail to explain that this was happening and to share with them how they could get more information about it in the fall. We did not do a mailing for this particular public hearing, but it was, it was public noticed in the newspaper. So I think that if there's other people, I think this is the struggle that we have with getting word out to residents, that they don't all read the newspaper and they don't all have the internet, and there's limitations, but we do have everybody who was even possibly in this water district has received paper mail from the town more than once. So they at least know it's being considered.
And the meeting, we will leave this public hearing open, Sarah, correct?
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there is certainly time still to share. And it's certainly a thing that would be much appreciated, that could just sharing with your neighbors and having conversations with everyone, just however all of us can work together to make sure everyone is informed, is something that certainly we would appreciate and we're committed to.
Yeah, keep in mind the nature of Salt Springs Road is very rural. We're not like a typical neighborhood where we see each other. The lots can be 3 acres, they can be 30 acres. And there's no like neighborhood Facebook page like some neighborhoods have. So it's a little different than a typical, say, suburban neighborhood. It's what people like out here, but we're not, I might know my immediate neighbors, and I've let them know, but I know there's a couple of older folks here that probably don't even know this is going on. So maybe another mailer would be in order, since the last one was in the fall.
Yeah, and I think, Mr. Messinio, one of the things to look at is that timeline that Taylor gave us. We actually have several additional touch points over the course of the summer, including, the petitioning, which would require, personal contact. So we do expect to be able to reach everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to move on to some other questions now, if we could. And if we need to come back to Mr. Messina, we can certainly do that, but I'm trying to get everybody in on this. So Alice.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Sure. We do have a couple of hands up. So I'm going to start with, I can only tell by the order that they're on the side. So I don't know if this is the order they came in, but we'll start with John Bartolotti.
Okay.
Thank you. John Bartolotti. I live at on Braylor Road, 8416. So a lot of good points that have been brought up. Mr. Messinio, does make some good points that I kind of align with. One of the questions, I saw the map that you put up, and you mentioned that there's going to be a water storage tank. What property is that going to be located on, and how visible is it, and how big is it? What's the diameter? What's the height? Because most of us are out here in this location so that we don't have to see a lot of those things. That's why we bought the property. They're not very attractive. So can you show us an enlarged plan of where that is actually going and how it's going to be at least camouflaged? Or
Yeah, I think, Taylor, you had that on your map. Maybe you can just pop that up again.
Sure.
And explain where it's going to be and how it looks.
Okay, can you guys see that again?
Yes.
it's very small.
It's a big map. I certainly understand. I'll try to zoom in a little bit. So this is a preliminary map. We have not secured any property to date, and we would not do so unless we got through this district formation process and secured financing and got into a design phase. But where we've currently shown the map and targeted, I'm forgetting the property owner's name here, where they're going to do, the brewery, or the hops, I should say. I believe that property's changed hands recently. Sarah, do you recall the property owner?
It was Mr. Meinekheim.
Okay, yes, Menekheim's property, correct.
And he was going to grow barley there, yeah.
Okay.
So is that on the let's see, plan, we'll call it plan east side of McClinton, or is that on the plan west side of McClinton?
That would be on the east side of McClinton.
Correct.
Heading towards Chittenden.
Yes.
Heading towards Chittenden to the right.
Mhm.
In this tank, what we're currently proposing is what I'll call a standpipe tank. Just to show you an example, this picture, if it will come up. If I need to zoom out, this is actually the existing Sky Ridge water storage tank. But this is just an example of a standpipe. Basically ground mounted, cylindrical. Ours would be certainly a little bit bigger than this. This is only a 50,000 gallon tank, but that's the concept as to what we'd be proposing.
And what is the size you're looking at doing? I mean, is it twice the size, 5 times the size? Is it,
Yeah, I think we're in the ballpark of like 30 feet in diameter by 50 feet tall, just roughly.
Wow, that's pretty large. Yeah, so that's going to tower over pretty much everything up there, right? It's going to be located.
Hey, Taylor, I can queue up the aerial photo if you want to take a look at that. Allison, if you can let me share my screen. So we had looked at the topography, if everyone's seeing this. Again, as Sarah mentioned, it was east of McClinton Road. Here are the facilities that were installed by Mankind. Again, the tank is intended to be a ground level tank, so it's not sticking way up in the air. So the higher you put it in elevation, the lower the tank to achieve your pressure. So when we looked at this and look at the topography, this tank would be probably somewhere up in this corner here, which is pretty ideal because you do have mature trees here on all sides of it that would basically screen it from the view shed from all sides. So again, a relatively small tank from a ground level storage perspective, and it would be pretty well screened up behind, sitting in this area right here.
That was my timer that just went off.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Allison?
Yes. So I do have I had to have 2 folks who are registered by email address. So Sheila2454@AOL.com. I'm going to push you into the meeting and allow you to talk. If you could just state your name.
My name is Sheila Ben, B-E-N. And I'm one of those very unlucky people. I happen to live on McClinton Road. So you'd be putting your, what you describe as small tank to you, because it's not in your backyard, but it would be in my backyard. And to be honest, you're telling me where it would probably be gives me absolutely zero reassurance, because I know what probably means probably yes and maybe no. With regard to the balance of the project, from my understanding is the number of homes in Sky Ridge, the number of properties that would benefit from this is 29. And of course, to dilute the cost for these 29 property owners, you are proposing to drag in an additional 95 property owners who would not benefit from this. The benefit would be to the 29 property owners, because you would be, by adding 95 properties, this 23%, these 29 homes would be diluting their cost. To say that this is inequitable, unfair, really unconscionable for 95 homeowners that have no complaints about their water, to have to share in the cost for the 29 people that stand to benefit is nothing short of outrageous. And from my understanding is this project can go forward. It's not like if you don't drag in these 95 people who want no part of it, that it can't go forward. It can go forward, and the people that will benefit from it will bear the cost. That's usually the way life is. The people that benefit from it bear the cost. The people who have the bad luck of being adjacent or nearby or fairly close, but stand not to benefit whatsoever, don't bear the cost, not only of an initial connection cost, but a continuing year after year. And I just think that the idea that you would spread the cost for 23% of the people over to the other 77% who have no benefit from it is really an outrage. And in addition to the fact that it's also in my backyard, but that's not my main complaint. I just found out about the tank when this gentleman spoke. My real outrage is I should not be bearing the cost of something that can occur. It's not like we're stopping this from occurring. It can occur, but the people that benefit ought to bear the cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. And it was under the 4 minutes. Okay. We have some others in the Q&A here.
Yes. I've got some, I want to get through the hands up. I've got Maggie New at yahoo.com. So when you come on, if you could just state your name, state your name.
Yes, Maggie Nyhurl, and I'm actually in the town of Sullivan. I want to congratulate your board because you are doing an excellent job of communicating and telling people what's going on. Unfortunately, the town of Sullivan board has not done that. I just want to add some explanation so people have a little bit of history because I've lived in this house for over 40 years. Sleepy Hollow down that connects into Route 5, it's going to get their water. However, the pumping station will not be maintained by Aqua. So the town of Sullivan will have the responsibility for maintaining that, which they don't really want. So that's a driver for the town of Sullivan on this. Sky Ridge Road, which is a small cul-de-sac up here, was left off the map, even though it was originally in the last iteration of this project, it was included. The town, I listened to the town of Sullivan last meeting with, I think, Taylor's presentation, and they basically admitted that because the people on Sky Ridge Road voted against the project last time and encouraged others to vote against it, that road was deliberately left off the plan. I'm not even sure if that's legal, but they've done it. The other thing, that where you're situating that water tank, that's on top of a hill. That will be visible from Route 173, as well as from Salt Springs. And the last point that I have, ClearPath is pushing for this water. All of their land and the old golf course has been rezoned as residential. And ClearPath wants to build, I'm not sure what, but there would be multiple dwellings, would include a lot more traffic running on Salt Springs Road, which runs right into the village of Fayetteville and will not make your people there very happy. And that's all. I'm sorry to be so negative, but it's not a project that we wanted 3 years ago. And it's not a project that we want to see now. I have sympathy for the people on Horseshoe. That was designed a long time ago by Bryce Tuttle. And we were very fortunate because we were on a Tuttle private public water system also, but had enough land on each portion of property to drill wells. The people on Horseshoe do not have that luxury. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Megan. Just for clarification, the Sky Ridge Road is in the town of Sullivan, not to be confused with the Sky Ridge District, which is what the Horseshoe Lane is part of. So
Yes, originally the water district on Sky Ridge Road was Sky Ridge 1 and Horseshoe was Sky Ridge 2.
very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great.
I learned something every day with this project.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
We do, I have, Benton has a hand raised. I do have some comments in the question and answer that I'll read through, and then we'll do Benson.
Okay.
Anonymous attendees that are regarding the formation of 3 separate water districts. When does this happen and how? Same in towns of Manlius and Sullivan.
So Taylor, do you want to take that?
Sure. So as you mentioned, we have 3 separate water districts. You know, the one that's existing, which we're here to talk about today, the Sky Ridge District. The other 2 are proposed, one being in the town of Manlius, Salt Springs Water District, and another town of Sullivan, Salt Springs Water District. You know, we're planning to move the process forward over the next, I'll say, 3 to 5 months to go through this 202B process, which is improvements to the existing district, as well as district formation for those 2 proposed. And I think Sarah had mentioned we are planning to do that with Article 12 through New York State Town Law, which is by petition. So that means that potential district residents would sign this petition, expressing their that they want to be involved in the district and they want to see it move forward. Without getting into the fine weeds and nitty gritty on that, just to summarize, we're planning on doing that over the next few months.
Thank you.
Pat Full. I recently purchased 45 acres on Salt Springs Road and water quality is poor. I would appreciate an affordable system that would allow me to possibly create a small subdivision. Can anyone give me an idea as to the single family cost of such a system?
So the estimated cost we have for a single family home right now, which includes an estimated aqua water bill, is $1,194 per year.
Marlene writes, as a resident on Salt Springs Road, I am very much for this project, not only for myself, but for all residents that are interested. There is always the option to opt out of the service. We all have great water until we don't. Public water helps protect the value of our property. Very 21st century town of Manlius and very progressive. Thank you.
It's Marlene Denny, it looks like, she signed Denny at the end.
Yes. So I also have Benson with the hand raised, so I'm going to allow to talk. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Steve Benson here, and I'm up on Salt Springs Road. I've been a resident of Manlius for 60 years now, off and on. And I wanted to know the question that I had in the survey that came out a while back that wasn't answered in writing was, what does the New York State Dormitory Authority involvement in this mean?
They're a supplemental funding source for the project.
And is there any relationship with anyone on that authority and anyone on the board?
I don't believe so.
No, the New York State Dormitory Authority is a authority created by the state of New York under statute to originally, hence the name, fund dormitories for SUNY schools. It is a financing arm of the state which is governed by a board of directors out of Albany. It's often used to do public projects. It would have nothing to do with the town of Manlius or the members of the board of the town of Manlius.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, over the last 5 years, I've been a staunch, have had some inputs into this. I do appreciate what you're doing. I just wish there was a little more transparency, because I think you'd get some buy-in. So think about, you know, if we're hearing the whole story, then that's fine. If we're not, tell us what's coming. Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Patty Tripoli wrote in the Q&A, what happens if the public response to the petition process is not to proceed with the proposed plan?
Let me, if I could, just kind of walk through this process. So again, there's two methods under New York State town law that are being used here, which Tim, the town attorney, can also cover, or Rich Andino, the project attorney. Again, the existing district is proceeding forward with an improvement under 202B. Should the town board, following this public hearing and the closure of it at the next meeting, determine that the project as presented benefits those people of Horseshoe Lane, then they would proceed with the project. Horseshoe Lane becomes the driver of their project. Horseshoe Lane would be positioned to then, or Sky Ridge Water District rather, would be positioned to move to a bond resolution and therefore apply for funding. There's a lot of funding on the horizon here with all of the infrastructure bills that are scheduled to be passed, which focus on water, sewer, and broadband. And certainly what the two towns are trying to do here falls within those parameters. Once that happens with Horseshoe Lane, or Sky Ridge rather, the funding will start to flow. It needs to get to a certain level in order to be affordable. Once that is in progress and the funding is being applied for, that's when these petitions are going to be circulated to the two potential districts in the town of Sullivan and the town of Manlius. This is an opportunity for public water. It's not a given. It's not being forced on the residents by the two respective towns. It's an opportunity. Should you choose to pursue the opportunity and sign the petition, that would then go to the assessor and to the town board to make a determination of benefit to those that have signed the petition. The districts, as presented by Taylor, have been developed through a series, probably 2, if not 3 interest surveys over the last 2 to 3 years. We've excluded areas that either don't want the water or it's not affordable to reach them because of rock and distance. So those that are in the proposed district have been determined that it's the most cost-effective public water system that'll serve Sky Ridge, meet Aqua's interests for resiliency, and also provide benefit to those that may choose to be in a water district along the Salt Springs corridor. You will have that choice. So again, as the caller complimented the town of Manlius, we as the team here have done everything to make this as transparent as possible. So certainly, on the public comment sheet, submit questions on items that you don't think have made it to the public. But again, we're trying to move this along as expeditiously as possible under town law to position this project for maximum funding to provide the most cost-effective public water system. That's basically it. And you people have the ability that are not in Sky Ridge to vote whether or not you want public water. That's basically it. That's what we're trying to do as consultants and your representatives at the towns.
And I might add, Ken, we are reasonable, of course, about this. I mean, if you get the petitions and they're based on assessments and how they're, with the majority of the turnout, I mean, a 55 to 45 isn't exactly a clear-cut win, you know, and that would be up to the board, us, if we did the petition to decide what is a clear-cut number. Is it 70-30? Is it, you know?
Sure.
So
And
those are the things that we as a board would also have to consider going forward, correct?
yes, and you know, again, the dormitory authority was mentioned. That is a funding mechanism for the $3 million, I think, that's been identified through Sturpey's office. Your town, your respective town boards, each just submitted a request to Congressman Katko and Congressman Tinney, who are looking for projects through their fiscal 22 appropriations, which are earmarks, for top projects within their communities. Your potential project received letters of support and submittals to your respective congressmen and women. That's going to the federal government. So the town board is doing everything they can to maximize funding and grants to reduce your costs. Again, opportunity. It's going to happen once, and it's probably now. And again, everything that we're doing is going to be provided to you. We've developed a plan of finance. We've estimated units. If the units go down, the costs go up. If the district gets defeated on Salt Springs Road, then there's a heck of a lot of grant funding that needs to be achieved, which may not be achievable for those on Sky Ridge to make this affordable. They may have to revert back to Band-Aid fixes to their existing system. So again, we've evaluated alternatives. It's all in the PER. The long-term solution has been recommended and laid out tonight, as well as an anticipated plan of finance. So what we're working together here to do is maximize funding for you people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Allison?
Yes. I hope I don't get this name wrong. Jean Lachette says, how tall is the tank going to be from the ground up? And do you think it will be visible from Salt Springs Road?
I think I'd thrown out the 50-foot tall estimate there. As Ken mentioned, we're trying to utilize the topography, you know, of the site there and locate that, you know, on the edge of that hill so that we don't have to have an elevated storage tank. There does appear to be some tree cover, which would, you know, block some of the view. I certainly can't promise that, you know, all the view shed would be covered though.
Deborah Tooker says, is it possible the new infrastructure funding will cover all the cost of the water system?
Yeah, she provided that to us by email too, Alice. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
So we've been discussing the plan of finance with the funding agencies, which to date have included New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation, which could provide a grant up to 60% of the total project costs within each town. The two towns have different median household incomes, which are also going to drive your funding terms. Town of Sullivan may need to go to federal funding through the USDA Rural Development Program. Each town can apply for a grant under Water Infrastructure Improvement Act, which would be 60%. The latest appropriation request that I just mentioned that went to the congressmen or to the federal government indicated up to an 80% grant, showing or demonstrating that the local match of 20% could be met by the constituents. So what's ultimately happening here is you are marketing this project to get all the funding in place that you can, ultimately trying to determine which is going to be which is going to result in the least annual debt service costs for the district users. So anywhere from 60% grant to 80%, I guess, to answer the question, but never 100% grant.
Mr. Messinio says, how much money has the town spent on this project and how much more may be spent prior to formal approval by the water district residents?
I'm not sure if we have those numbers, and
Our fee is 15,000 and change, 15,800, Taylor?
Yeah, I'm trying to know what we budgeted for.
Yeah, just under that. That includes phase 1 archaeological survey as well.
Right, and that's a lump sum fee. So we're in it to win it. And then I'm not sure what had been spent previously by the town. And then also similarly, we've been engaged by the town of Sullivan for, I think, slightly under that because a lot of work had already been done by Sullivan on the previous attempt to form their district.
Pat Full says, at this point, it seems to be a conflict between the past and the future. I do not think that Salt Springs Road will ever be a Brooklyn, New York. It will always be rural, but can it be busier? Is this good or bad? I am leaning toward approval of the system and will continue to follow this procedure. Thank you for all your help, and I am impressed with the group I am watching on Zoom. And then it looks like we do have a hand up. John Bartoletti again.
Sure, John can go, sure.
Sure, thank you all for help, answering the questions. One quick one though. It seems like what I'm hearing now is that this is kind of more of a town benefit than an individual zone benefit. If that's the case, then why does this not come out of the town taxes on a whole instead of a small district?
So, Tim or Rich, feel free to jump in, but generally, the way that water districts or town water districts are set up in accordance with New York state law, it's only the benefiting users that would be those that have to, pay back the debt on the water project. So, for example, the Sky Ridge, obviously, they are benefiting users as well as, if we have a transmission main along Salt Springs Road, those properties would have the benefit of the fire hydrants, as we talked about. And then they have, current or future potential to connect into that water system should they have, that need. And it's really that New York State town law and district formation that, kind of drives us into just the benefiting users, those in these district corridors that are responsible for project costs.
Thank you.
Heather,
Yeah, may I ask a question? I know Sarah and Doug maybe too. Can you clarify a little bit when we were talking about the drainage improvements too? I think I asked the same question. I was trying to understand district formation and also the options that towns have, even though it takes quite a process to get there. But since we're entering into comprehensive planning as a community, I'm just curious to know, is there a precedent anywhere for going to a whole district model or a single district model?
Heather, can I jump in?
Please, Tim. Yeah, go for it.
There is Heather. Yes. Go ahead, Tim.
No, go ahead, Doug. If you're gonna, and I'll supplement if I need to. We have discussed in the past, looking at storm districts and the like across the whole town. In fact, in the town of Manlius, I believe there is just outside of the Horseshoe District, it's a consolidated water district. So, the answer is yes. And, there are some other things that we have had some discussions on, potentially lighting districts to make that district wide. But there's as you can see here, there's a lot of pros and cons both ways when you start to weigh it. But it is something that you could possibly. Tim? Yep. So a water district or a sewer district are very good examples in the town of Manlius. Why the state legislature implemented the concept of a special district. So if you look at a map of the town of Manlius, the fact of the matter is most of our properties are either on wells in terms of water or on septic in terms of sewer. Because we don't have pipes that go to those areas. And it would be very expensive to provide an extension to those areas. So when a developer develops a subdivision, for instance, they connect the pipes that already exist and they extend those out. But They do that through the special district concept. It would be unfair for us to have a townwide sewer district if not everybody's getting public sewer. It would be unfair to have a townwide water district if not everybody in the town has access to public water. So that's why the whole concept of a special district exists.
But in the case of our water district, when a new subdivision comes in and it has public water, it is usually an extension of the existing district, and it's a cost that is borne by the developer. So it's not an after the fact cost. So it's part of construction of the whole. So it gets deeded over to the town. Basically, there's no cost to the town, but then it gets incorporated into the consolidated water district 1. So in the case of the water district in the town, Tim's right, it doesn't encompass the whole town, but the consolidated water district does encompass everywhere where we have a water pipe, other than Horseshoe. Horseshoe is an anomaly. But there are only 2 districts in the town, consolidated 1 and Horseshoe. There may be 1 or 2 other where we have not retired the debt service, but once we retire the debt service, we roll it into consolidated water district 1 tradition.
What I suggest we do is, we've been into this just about an hour, and I see we have a couple of questions left. I'd like to wrap those 2 up. Since we're keeping this public hearing open to the next meeting, it will give people an opportunity to send more information, questions, comments to us between now and the 28th. Would everyone be in favor of that? And, come out of it and extend it, and just answer a couple of these last couple of questions. Allison, can you?
Sure. We have a hand up, Stuart Ben. It just disappeared. Okay. We also have, let's see, Sheila says, to form a district, is it true that homeowners representing 51% of the assessed value in the district must sign a petition supporting the project?
I believe that's yes.
Yeah, I can jump in here, Sarah. This is Rich Andino, the project attorney. So under Article 12, so the public hearing tonight is under a procedure of the town law called Section 202B, and that is a procedure that exists for existing districts to undertake water improvements. And the other 2 components of the whole project are district formations, 1 in Manlius and 1 in Sullivan. And in order, the procedure that both towns have elected to utilize for those district formations is under Article 12 of the town law. And that's what we refer to as the petition method for forming a district. And that does require 51% of the taxable assessed value to sign the petition, the owners of that taxable assessed value. That's one component. If there are resident owners, you also need at least 50% of the resident owner taxable assessed value. So there's 2 legs. And the primary reason for that is if you have a large commercial property that has a really large assessed value to it, that by itself wouldn't get you over the threshold to form the district and thereby disadvantage resident owners. So there's 2 legs to the requirements of the petition. Overall 50% assessed value, but also at least 50% of the resident owner taxable assessed value. And that's going to have to occur in both Sullivan and in Manlius.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Rich.
Stuart Ben has his hand up, and I'm going to grab that because it's been faulty. Okay, go ahead.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yes, I'm Sheila's husband, and we live on the northeast side of McClenton Road. Our home looks directly at the area where you propose to put the water tank. I didn't realize that until this evening when I first saw the map. But I have some other concerns I'd just like to raise, or just some points. We've lived here for 37 years. Before we bought our home, I went downtown and I met with a gentleman named Gary Sauda, S-A-U-D-A, who at the time was either a geologist or hydrologist, I'm not sure, with Onondaga County. He told me that under our home, there was a 40-foot aquifer that we would never have to worry about a water supply. And indeed, we never have. I then spoke to Mr. Lee Hale, H-A-L-E, who owned a farm on the north side of Salt Springs Road, directly across from the intersection of McClinton and Salt Springs. And at the time, he had 800 head of, I don't know what you call it, cows. And he told me that he had 3 wells in all the years that he had owned the Hale farm. He had never run out of water. I would also like to add that as a retired attorney, having practiced in the village of Manlius for almost 40 years, with all the real estate closings I've done, I'd like to say that I've never seen a purchase offer go in where a well was involved, where a home purchaser did not have an opportunity to first have that well inspected. And in fact, their mortgagee who was going to loan the money would have required a well test. I had a number of closings with that involved Erie Village properties, and Earl Oot, who was one of the developers of that property, told me that one of his biggest problems was the surplusage of water that they had to rid their property of, because so much water flowed downhill in elevation as you went from where I currently live downward westerly toward the village of Fayetteville. So there's no question that there's an abundance of wonderful, wonderful water up here. I did my due diligence and I assured myself that I would never have a problem with the source of water. The other point that I would like to raise is that water to a home is a utility, just as a sewer system, or if you don't have a sewer system, as we don't, you have a septic system. Just as a heating source, we do not have gas lines, so we rely on oil. Other people use propane. If I have a problem with my heating system as a utility, if I have a problem with my septic system as a utility, I don't run to the town and ask the town to put in a sewer system for me or run a gas line up to my home for me. I deal with that issue myself, having known full well when I purchased my home that I may have to confront that issue. And as my wife spoke to this issue, I believe it is wholly unfair for anyone who owns a property in the town of Manlius or the town of Sullivan, who is on a well, who went into the purchase of their home knowing full well that they were purchasing a property that relied on a well. It is wholly unfair for any of them to ask anyone else to share in an upgrade, a repair, a revision, a modification to their own particular system. Again, if my windows leak and I'm losing air conditioning or heat during the respective seasons, I don't go to my neighbors and say, let's run to the town of Manlius and see if they'll establish a window district and have everyone else pay for my new windows. Again, I just feel it's wholly, wholly unfair. And especially for someone who owns a large property that they want to subdivide, for them to want to ask anyone else who lives in this area to share in the cost to provide a utility to them to make their properties more saleable is nothing more than the King of England unfairly taxing the patriots before America became a country. It's just wholly unconscionable to buy a piece of property thinking that you're going to subdivide it in the future, but you don't want to have to incur a cost of prospective lot owners putting in wells because it makes your lots less desirable. That's your problem when you purchase the property, not the problem of anyone else who lives up here. And I want to thank you for entertaining my opinions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ben. We're just about the top of the hour. I really, since we are going to keep this open for the next meeting, I would like to make a motion to have this extended, or how will we do that, Tim?
Could we just answer the question first? The couple of questions, there was one that again looked like a conflict of interest question. Does anyone on the board or that'll be a part of the decision live in the area or will be directly affected by the water project? We could answer that pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, I don't think any one of us live in that area.
No.
No.
No, that's a good one. Yeah, I saw that. I didn't see that there. That was
no worries.
So, yeah, so let's move on and continue this for the April 28th. So we need a motion.
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor, I'd be happy to make a motion to keep this public hearing open until April 28th.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Very good. All right, awful lot of information, a lot of good comments and concerns and questions. And I know we're going to get a lot more. We still need to answer a lot of these questions over the next couple of weeks. So Ken, Taylor, Rich, Olivia, I know you're in the background there. Thank you for all of your input tonight. This is very helpful for us.
All right. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thanks so much. See you on the 28th.
All right. All right. With that, we need to move on to the local law noise ordinance amendment. This had been sort of put on the back page a little bit. We were waiting to hear from the villages on this, Tim. And I think that we're all sort of in agreement now, I think, with how
yeah, there's been some positive momentum, and we feel, pretty good to move forward with this. And we did have extensive public hearings back when we were, kind of working out the details of all this. So,
along with the input of the chief, which was very helpful with the members, with the mayors and a couple of us as well. So thank you.
Supervisor, I can't recall if we did seeker on this. So if we could just run through seeker quickly. I mean, clearly what our intent is on this local law.
I don't remember either, Tim.
I don't think we did.
Yes. No. Let's go through part 2 of the seeker form. And in the context of the environmental significance of this local law, our intention is actually to reduce any environmental impacts by passing this local law. So I think we know what the answer to these questions will be. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning or regulation?
No.
No to small. Will the proposed action result in a change in intensity or use of the land?
No.
No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of existing community?
No.
No.
Will it affect the CEA? No. Will it result in an adverse change in existing level of traffic or affect infrastructure or mass transit?
No.
Will the proposed action increase the use of energy or fails to incorporate reasonable available energy conservation methods?
No.
Will it affect public water or public sewer?
No.
No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historical, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources?
No.
No.
Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in natural resources, wetland, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, or fauna?
No.
Will the proposed action result in an increase in potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems?
No.
No.
And the final one is, will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health?
No.
Okay, so based on the answers to those questions and the fact that this is a local law and we would be lead agency on that local law because there is no other involved agency, I would recommend that the town board issue a negative declaration under.
So I'll make a motion to issue a negative declaration. Is this an unlisted action?
It is.
In this unlisted action.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried?
Thank you for that. John, do you want to talk about the local law, or does everybody?
Yeah, I'll do a quick recap.
Okay.
So basically, we have a noise ordinance on the books. This is amending that noise ordinance with measurable and quantifiable terms for, rather than unreasonable standards, basically. We, through a couple different incidents, we found, it came to my attention that our current law was hard to enforce because of how it was written. And so we looked at best practices around the state and around the country about how to do that. And, it's a moving target. We're pretty confident with what we've got. And if it ends up being a little too much, we can always, have that conversation. But for right now, this is just a way to take a law that was pretty hard to enforce and hopefully make it so that it can be enforced when needed. The major
and John, could you speak to the consistency with the village laws that have been passed as well?
That's just the word. Yeah,
We had
consistency.
met with the villages and the chief and Ed earlier this year, or maybe at the end of last year, to just make sure that we kind of had very similar noise ordinances, but they differed in a couple different ways. And so what we kind of hashed out those differences and made sure, I think Fayetteville is the only one that kept dusk instead of a particular time. But this way, enforcement is the same across the entirety of the town. So it's also to kind of clean that up a little bit.
Yep, very good. Thank you, John. Anyone else have anything that would like to add? I think we're good to go here. If we're all in favor.
Cool. So, Mr. Supervisor, I'll make a motion to adopt local law further amending Chapter 86 entitled Noise Control of the Code of the Town of Manlius.
All right. And a second. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, Elaine. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and carried. Very good. Yeah, that was
yeah,
work put into a lot of noise going on here.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. I'm hoping that stuff like this can happen a little bit more often when we, with the chicken law. At the end of the day, it's a lot of clarification and making it a little easier for folks to understand, and making the laws better. Doesn't necessarily have to be a new law to make our community a little bit better.
Just polishing it up a little bit. You're right. So we'll move on now to, we have the next is the proposed hydrants on North Burdick Street, Breckenridge Dental Hydrant. Who would like to address that? Doug, or I know Randy, you got we all got the letter on it.
Sure, that's a hydrant that the developer's putting in. It's being paid for by the developer. Once it's incorporated into our system and incorporated into the district, then we just have to track it through our account to make sure that we charge the residents in that district the hydrant fee. So
Right.
We've done this in the past, and all we need is authorization for the supervisor to sign the agreement with Patrick Sherlock at the Onondaga County Water Authority.
Very good. All right. So we'll need a.
So I'll make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign an agreement with Aqua with regard to the Breckenridge North Burdick Street hydrant.
Very good.
Second
I'll
that.
second it. Okay.
Thanks, Karen.
File map number 1934.
Right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Very good. Karen and Heather, it's like pushing that Jeopardy button, it seems. So, very good. All right, we'll move on. Next one, number 9. Okay, this is the zone change on South Burdick, restricted agriculture RA to RM. Tim, did you want to just, I think you have an updated information and it came from the planning
Yeah,
board?
so the planning board on Monday gave a positive recommendation to the town board for this zone change from restricted agricultural to RM. This is that residence on the top of the hill behind the Craftsman. It's a 2-acre, 2+ acre parcel that the applicant is proposing to use as his real estate office. And we believed RM was the most appropriate zoning for that property because it is a good transition between the existing R1 and the CA along Genesee Street. So I prepared a resolution to call for a public hearing, whichever date you guys want to use, to hear the public on the zone change request.
So I would like to make a motion to set the public hearing date for April 28th and to approve the resolution that was provided.
I'll second that.
That's plenty of time, right, Allison, for the 28th?
It's not, it's time. It's not huge amount.
Yeah.
Basically, the residents in the neighborhood will have a week of notice.
All right. That's fine. I just want to make sure, you always check with the calendar. All right. We had a second too.
Yep.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carrie, did you put a time in on that, by the way, Sarah? Did you say it?
Yeah.
Oh, you just muted yourself.
To take it off. So it'd say 6:40. Because we're continuing the other one as well.
Yeah.
Because we've got the other one. Yep.
Yeah. And, with open podium, we might even want to,
You don't have to set the times.
Okay.
You just cannot start before that time. So it's actually better if you just do 6:35 and 6:40.
That's right. Okay. I've only been doing this a little while, so. All right, let's, we can, all right, now we're on to our highway superintendent, Rob Cushing, took the plows off, right?
I hope so. I don't know. They're talking snow here to the east here tonight or tomorrow night and Friday, but as promised, guys, I had mentioned at the last board meeting the concerns that we had with purchasing of those 2 pickup trucks. Obviously, Van Bortle did not have the state bid, and there is having issues with their build outs through Ford. So we went kind of a little different direction, going through the OGS mini bid process, which we've done before. It's just a lot more legwork. But we were able to do that a couple of weeks ago. So through that process, we had 1, 2, 3, about 7 different people who bid on it, different dealerships, including Van Bortle. But it looks to me as if Metro Ford Sales, which is just outside of Schenectady, actually has got the lowest bid for, and actually what it's doing is instead of going to a 2021, this is actually going to be a 2022 truck because of the build out dates have changed already in next year. So the quick number actually is right around, well, the price for through Metro Ford Sales is $86,078.16. That's for 2 pickups. And we were at Van Bortle was at 870 or 87,544.76. So we actually got a difference between the two of $1,466 cheaper than it would have been to go through Van Bortle. So I guess the legwork was well worth it for us to do. And we're getting actually a truck that's going to be a year in advance here already. So I'm hoping sometime September we'll get, receive the trucks. So I guess what I need is a motion to accept the bid from Metro Ford Sales as presented.
So I'll make a motion to accept the bid for $86,078.16 for 2022. So a newer truck for less money. So I think this is a good deal.
Absolutely.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. There you go, Rob. There's your.
Not to belabor anything, but I did talk to Sarah, and I didn't really get a chance to talk to John yet. But I want to make mention to the board, if you hadn't seen it already, what's going on with the CHIPS funding this year. Quick note, it looks like it's about a 32.5% increase overall. With the emergency winter recovery has been reinstated. The 20% that we were decreased from last year has been reinstated, and we're able to carry that over into this year too. So I'm real excited about it. I think that, you know, the Highway Superintendents Association across the state, the Supervisors Association, obviously along with all our boards and our elected officials, really stepped up to make this happen this year. And I want to thank everyone who did that. So other than that, I'm good.
Excellent, Rob. Thank you very much. Randy, anything for us on planning and development?
Business is picking up as expected, only a little bit earlier than anticipated, which is a good thing for the town on it. So, and the second thing I have is I just want to make it on the record that DEC has a no burn ban till May 14th. There's some very minor modifications to it. We've been getting some phone calls on it. We don't regulate that. The DEC does through the state on it. We just have to either enforce it or obey it. But there is a burn ban till May 14th out there right now.
Very good.
That's all.
Doug, anything you want to add to that planning and development?
No, all set for right now.
All set. Okay, very good.
Yep.
Tim, Attorney for Teske.
The only thing I have is that we will have to go into executive session tonight to discuss the individual employment history of a person in the planning department and the potential employment or contracting with a corporation or business organization.
Okay, very good. Allison?
I'm all set, thank you.
All set. You've done plenty tonight already. Thank you. And Chief, what do you have for us tonight?
Just a few things, Mr. Supervisor. We're wrapping up our April in-service training, which consisted of legal updates, procedural justice, and de-escalation. And we have one more training segment left on that to finish the entire agency. And then the last thing is, this morning I offered a conditional offer of employment to our third new police officer employee who's scheduled to begin the police academy in Oswego in 2 weeks.
Very good. And we just sent 2 out as well, right? I think. Yeah.
That's correct. We currently have 2 enrolled in the Broome County Police Academy, and the next academy that was available to us, unfortunately, there wasn't anything available in Onondaga County, so we had to venture over to Oswego.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And I see we have you down here twice, I think. 15. Are you 15.1 as well?
Just have one item. As you know, the Director of Codes Enforcement has submitted his resignation. So the next step in that process will be to canvass the Onondaga County Civil Service eligible list for that position. I have spoken to a few of the counselors already. I will submit that to the county tomorrow. Get that list back. We will send letters out to the candidates that are on that list, and then we will schedule interviews. I think we'll include, some members or the chairman of the planning board, Councilor Creasel, myself, perhaps one of the members of the planning staff, and we'll report back.
Thank you, Ann. So no turning back now, Randy, I guess. Huh? Right. And critical now we're on to the committee report. So Karen, I think you have a report on the critical response committee.
Yes, I again want to remark on what a great job Captain Schaefer and Sergeant Greg Snyder have done all during this pandemic. They have not lost a beat on keeping this critical response committee going and have been meeting every 2 months. We've had outstanding speakers, and on Tuesday, we had the opportunity to meet with Jennifer Romano, who is the New York State Office of Emergency Management Regional Coordinator. There's 5 districts in all of New York State, and she talked about the training and the resources available. They've got a great website and really involve a lot of agencies. But during these roundtables, we also hear from the other attendees, and we often don't get a chance to meet all together. And but just a couple of things I wanted you to be aware of, that apparently the Memorial Day parades still have not been completely verified yet. So I know the villages would certainly like to go forward, but putting them together. So I just wanted to let everyone know. And then from the Office of Onondaga County Emergency Management, the COVID cases are declining and they have PPEs available for any social agencies or anything, you know, that you may need. So, and Manoa, the ambulance calls numbers are up, but the COVID calls are down. So anyway, it's just a great opportunity to meet with the school districts, the town of DeWitt, and I give Captain Schaefer and Sergeant Snyder a lot of credit for keeping it going. Very interesting programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. The only thing I have before we go into executive session is Monday morning, I met with the three mayors along with Chief Kroll. And it was initially to talk about the new marijuana regulation that's come out, which I learned there's more than one way to spell marijuana. And that it was very informative. The villages and the towns do things differently by local law and so on. And I don't really want to get into a lot of it tonight. I know that Heather, thank you for attending that meeting Monday. I think last Monday, the 5th, I think, Sarah, you were able to make it too, where Association of Towns put this presentation on. There are quite a few moving parts in this, but I'd like at some point for us to share some thoughts here where we can have some public information meetings to talk about this, because we do have to make a decision by December of this year to whether we're going to opt out of this plan or not. And I don't want to get into all the details of that right now because it would go on. So I just wanted, this is just sort of a, you know, shooting it out here. So we do need to discuss this going forward. Lastly, as far as the parades, the Mayor Olson did mention that they have, I think 99% sure that they're going to have the Memorial Day parade. They're trying to figure out how they're going to do it. Mayor Worrell and Brazil are going to do memorials, and I believe they're going to focus in Manlius on the 4th of July parade, and have it later in the day, like 4 o'clock, so it's closer to the fireworks and so on. And again, it's all work in progress. Nothing's set in stone yet. But we covered more than this, didn't we, Chief, at that meeting Monday morning? So we hadn't had a meeting in a long time, the mayors and I. So it was very, very informative. So that's all I have for now. And yes.
I'm sorry, Councilor Creasel would just like to give an update. If she could, please.
Okay, all right.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead, Caitlin. I didn't see your name on here. I would have, you know.
No, I know. I've got to get used to the new way of doing it. I keep forgetting we're not doing the round robin anymore. But I just wanted to mention that Sustainable Manlius is continuing Earth Fest, and Earth Week is next week. We have Earth Fest continuing tomorrow at 7 o'clock with electric vehicles, and it's going to be a really fantastic presentation. We've been getting the best feedback on the presentation, so hopefully you guys have been tuning in and sharing with everyone. And I actually bought an electric vehicle myself yesterday, so I have a full EV, and I'm really excited. I can see why people get obsessed with these cars and why everyone loves to tell the stories of their EVs. I'm kind of scared to drive it. It's charging in my driveway right now, which is exciting. So come tomorrow at 7 o'clock. It's going to be on Zoom, and you can stream it live on the Facebook to learn more about electric vehicles.
Thank you. And you know, thank you for bringing that up, because you just reminded me of one last thing. Heather, I want to put this out to you too, because we heard back from FM school regarding
Tony's tree.
Yeah, Tony's tree. Remember, we went to his honor flight. His birthday turned 100, and we were waiting to hear back from FM if they would do a special honor for him and they have decided that they're going to do it on Arbor Day. I believe Allison Wellwood, I think they talked about. We haven't got all the details yet, but I've already notified his family and the people who are going to be involved in the tree commission, because I think that's an important aspect to being part of the Arbor Day presentation to Tony.
That's great. I haven't had a chance to communicate with the full commission about it. So if anyone's watching, I'm not keeping you out of the loop, but just got the info. So I'm sure we'll be delighted to be a part of that. So that's the last Friday of the month. So not to overshadow Earth Fest activities, the last one will be on the 29th, and then the last day of the month, the 30th. Yeah, we'll get to have that tree planting in honor of a resident who was a part of the school district. Thank you so much.
It would tie in nicely with what Caitlin's doing, you know, so, all right. All right, now we do need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Okay.
And the purpose of executive session is to discuss the history of, the employment history of a individual in the planning department and the potential employment of a corporation or business. I sent out a new link to everybody just as we started the meeting, because I suspected we would go past the 7:30 that I had.
Yeah. All right.
So we should leave this meeting, go to the link I sent, and then when we're done with the executive session, we will join back on this. Right, Allison?
So I just need a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, against? Carried. Very good. All right, so now we will follow the instructions of getting off the video.
And we're back.
I just searched now for panelist in my email, so that's how I know how to get to the link.
It's helpful when she sends them the day of versus like 5 days earlier. That's a good idea though, Heather. Because then I just like scroll for days. I'm like,
Yeah,
where
no,
did it go?
panelist is the good keyword.
Sorry, I was watching on Facebook on my phone charger and there was a lag.
No worries.
All right.
We're just missing our town supervisor. And there he is.
Thank goodness for Anne, who was like, come back.
No, it's like you didn't know how long that was going to go on. You were going to have to maybe,
No.
have a hot toddy and broadcast from bed.
All right, all right. Sorry, I had to rejoin everybody back. Okay, good. All right, let's, we have the motion, I believe, Caitlin, that you want to.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion that we hire Mr. Randy Capriati at $75 an hour as a part-time employee of the town, not to exceed 20 hours a week until the town board deems appropriate that this arrangement no longer continue, and that this begins on the 8th of May.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Karen.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion that the town engage MJ Engineering to serve in the town engineer role pursuant to their proposal and with a contract contingent on legal review to begin in May at a date to be determined when we agree to contracting.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Or Heather or John can do it, not me. I did one.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, very good. Carried. All right. Excellent. Thank you, everyone.
Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion that we end this town board meeting and that we all get to go to sleep.
You beat me to
My
it.
motion.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
night, everyone. Stay out of trouble, Tim.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, Tim,
Take
stay out of
care.
trouble.